Hi, and welcome back to Politidoxy. I'm your host, Aaron Friedman. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing to you somebody who has had a lot of struggles in her life with her sister, who was one of the founders of the feminist movement, and I've come across her by this work right here. I'm holding it up right here. The Devil and Karl Marx, and her name is Mallory Millett. And she is on the board of directors of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. And I think that this is one of the most interesting people you could interview nowadays, because her sister was one of the founding members of the feminist movement. She was one of the early faces of the National Organization for Women, or otherwise known as NOW. And we know that they were not only in spirit, but fundamentally they were Marxist. And I think that you just don't get nowadays. You don't get that many people who were there, who got to meet these people up close, see what they have to say in a personal capacity. So I would like to start out here with asking you the first question of your sister, Kate Millett. She was known as, here in the book, it describes her. One of the top lines is Kate Millett, Mao of women's lib, high priestess of feminism. Now, I find this as very striking words, because Mao was a murderer of millions of people, and why would Paul do the try? Why would Paul make the connection between Mao Zedong and your sister?
He has the vineyard owner who says to the guy, "What are you, jealous of me because I am wealthy, and you don't think I have a right to distribute my own money the way I can distribute my own money?" And Jesus is on the side of that guy. He's not on the side of the other guy. So, I mean, this is something that people just don't seem to get straight. You don't have to choose, between this and that and this and that. You just have to understand freedom, and that when people go to work and they produce through their own labor something, they have a right to say about what's done with it. That's all. It's as simple as that.
Exactly. So we've gotten a little bit off track here. So you laid out the reasons for why we should stay away from communism and socialism and the dangers that entails. So why would
that's because
Paul
I see America's flirting.
I was
sorry.
asking.
Oh dear, we've got this cross.
No, we're
we've
good.
got this crossing where we're talking over each other. I'm sorry. I don't really want that to happen.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay. So where were we?
I was asking, why would Paul, who wrote the book, and this is one wonderful book. I'm just going to hold it up one more time for the audience so they can
Paul,
see.
yeah.
Yeah. So why would he make the connection? So now we laid out how evil Marxism or communism, socialism, whatever have you, is. Why would he make the connection to your sister as being Mao and the Mao of women's lib and the high priestess of feminism?
Yeah, and she was also called the Karl Marx of the feminist movement by Time magazine. Well, because everything that all those words and figures and names have in common is communism. My sister was a devoted communist. I mean, she got communized in college. They start out with Rousseau, and they go on from there. They do this in the universities. They've been doing it for decades and decades. And she was there in the 50s. And she sopped it all up, and then she went to England to study at the great university there, and she did 3 years in Oxford. She was at St. Hilda's College in Oxford, and she did 3 years in and she came back just totally Marxified. I mean, by the time she came back, she was Karl Marx, and so then she got totally involved. You see, what people have to understand is that feminism, this thing they call feminism, all this is a concoction of these Marx and Engels and Wilhelm Reich and all of them when their little cabal over there where they invented all of this stuff. And it's all the same thing. It's all about robbing people of the fruits of their labors and giving it to people who don't work, is really a very simple way of putting it. They just want to take what everybody makes, put it in a big kitty, and then supposedly share it all evenly and decently and properly. But of course, that never happens, and you end up with places like Soviet Russia and places like all these really corrupt places where they just have a Politburo and they have all these people with great power, and then all the poor peasants in the street. This is not what America. This is these. We get these exotic things, and people fall in love with them, and they go to colleges like Oxford, and they come back to America, and they bring all these ideas, and they start trying to spread it. Columbia University is just the it's just the germ operation of the disease of communism being spread. And the problem is, and the thing that makes me get excited and why I want to get on the radio or talk to anybody about this, is that America is seriously flirting with socialism all the time. And it's terrifying. It's like watching your daughter dating a guy you already know has murdered 3 girls or something. I mean, it's insane to have to sit here and watch this very silly, very uninformed, ignorant flirtation with socialism that keeps going on here in America. And of course, people are attracted to that, because if it means that I can just stay home all day and do nothing and I can still draw some sort of salary from the government under some pretext or another, then why not do it? I mean, I'm a human being. I'm naturally lazy. I would prefer not to work rather than working a lot of times. I mean, I like to sit home and do nothing and sit around and do whatever I feel like doing, and hanging out with my friends and running around and partying. I mean, what's wrong with that? But, that's just, if you're around a bunch of socialists, that's all that's going on. They're all at these meetings all the time. They're all partying with each other. They drink a lot. They're just, I just warn people to stay away from socialism. Socialists, people who call themselves socialists, don't get anywhere near the whole thing. It's another swamp, It's not necessarily the swamp that Trump's talking about, but it's a big swamp.
Yeah.
So that's my aim and my energy in life goes toward getting socialism and communism, Marxism, out of our country. If we could just get it out of here. I don't know
Yes.
how, but it's just festering in all these universities. They have just opened up the universities as indoctrination centers for Marxism, basically. That's all
Right.
they do now. They're not teaching geology and any of these things anymore. They're mostly teaching these things with Marxism woven all through it every minute. It's very, very frustrating for somebody like me.
Yes.
Because I'm 85 years old now. I've really been through the mill, and I was very innocent and bought into all this stuff when I was young. I get it. I completely get it. But we need to, need to cut them off at the pass. We've got to we've got to get down that road there and cut them off at the pass as early as we can. They're giving it to our kindergartners now. Now they're trying to talk them all from changing into boys into girls. I mean,
Yeah, speaking
it's
of
all
that,
the same people.
speaking of that, the changing of boys into girls, and that stems from the idea of pride, and this goes back to the obsession of communists. Even Bernie Sanders had this obsession,
Yeah.
rape fantasies, talking about rape fantasies that women have, and this brings you to the next question. That I've noticed that a lot of the communists they have this obsession with sex. Now, I would like to read for you from the book here. I would like to get your reaction to this. Is that, and I'm reading here that you're talking here. So these are your words. It was 1969. Kate invited me to join her for a gathering at the home of her friend, Lila Karp. They called the assemblage a consciousness raising group, a typical communist exercise, something practiced in Maoist China. We gathered at a large table as the chairperson opened the meeting with a back and forth recitation, like a litany a type of prayer done in the Catholic Church, but now it was Marxism. The church was the church of the left, mimicking religious practice. So this is what they chanted. Why are we here today? She asked. To make revolution, they answered. What kind of revolution? She replied. The cultural revolution, they chanted. And how do we make cultural revolution? She demanded. By destroying the American family, they answered. How do we destroy the American family? She came back. By destroying the American patriarch, they cried exuberantly. And how do we destroy the American patriarch? She replied. By taking away his power. How do we do that? By destroying monogamy, they shouted. How can we destroy monogamy? By promoting promiscuity, eroticism, prostitution, and homosexuality, they responded. So this strikes me as being cult-like above all else, but also this obsession with sex. What is with that? Why are communists so obsessed with sex, and especially lesbian sex, homosexual sex, and prostitution, promiscuity, all of that? Why?
Well, the one thing that's left out in the version that you read of this is abortion. It's usually it goes eroticism, prostitution, promiscuity, abortion, and homosexuality.
Abortion is for, as far as I understand, abortion is because if you want to know one of the fundamentals that make a liberal is that actions without consequences. I will not live by the consequences of my actions. So creating a baby, I will not live by the consequences. So I will just kill the baby. That is basic. So abortion stems from, as far as I understand, it stems from I do not live by the consequences of my actions.
Yes, that's the hallmark of it, Aaron. The
Right.
hallmark of it is that no one should have to live with consequences, which is, of course, the most absurd thing that you could possibly posit. That's nuts. Everything is consequences. If I walk across the street and I don't look both ways, I will get hit by a car.
Right.
I mean, this is just the way it is. Everybody, the people who will buy into this kind of thing are so immature. It is such a childish thing for adult people to be chasing after. We should be applauding consequences. We should be watching and cataloging and categorizing and being very careful about consequences. That's what we should be being taught. We shouldn't be being taught that you should never have to have any consequences. But you see, the thing is, it's as I have a dear associate named Dr. Patrick Fagan, who teaches at the Catholic University in Washington, and he also knows Paul Kengor very well, and he talks about the fact that the way that if you want to destroy society, and if you want to get control of society, if you want to dominate society, the thing that you go at that's the most succinct and the easiest way to topple a society is to attack it in the joining between the male and the female. Because when the man and the woman come together, that's how they create more population. They're the ones who educate the family, who create the family, and then raise it up and put it out into the world. And so that's the place where you have to do the damage, is right there. And if you've got boys sleeping with boys and girls sleeping with girls and people having promiscuous sex and abortions, you have perverted people to such a degree that as Adolf Hitler said, if you can convince people to do absurd things, if you can make absurdities natural to people, they will then accept atrocities. And that's a very important thing to understand. People wander around saying, what happened in Germany? I mean, why did people, they were sitting there in their homes, having their families and lives, and then this stuff started happening, and everybody said, oh, yeah, let's just go out and kill all these Jews, and yippee, whoopee doo, what a great idea this is. But, it's not how it works. It's a very insidious thing that this creep through a society that you can make. And to get everybody involved in perversions and the breaking of all taboos. See, one of the people who was at the basis of all of this perversion when it began in the 18th centuries was the Marquis de Sade. The Marquis de Sade is an important figure in all of this. He was the person who began to try to normalize atrocities, normalize deviance. He wanted to get rid of all taboos. That was his mission, and he led this insane life. He spent most of his life in insane asylums, by the way, and that he was part of the French Revolution at one point until they threw him out. But he was, he dabbled in experimenting sexually, and he loved to torture women. He would murder people. He got away with murder, literally. He got away with everything. But the Marquis de Sade was the one who began this whole idea that the way to cure society is to break it all apart and destroy all the taboos. And I'm talking all the taboos, Aaron. Now think of what the taboos are. Bestiality, cannibalism. I mean, what are the taboos? These people are so
Right now,
absurd.
as a matter
You
of
couldn't
fact,
possibly conduct a society like this.
by the way,
And
right
my
now,
sister,
right now they are
what?
right now they are trying. I mean, what they're trying to do is to legalize pedophilia, and they first,
Yeah.
above all else, you need to consider the feelings of such people and call them minor attracted persons, as if that is
Yes.
some kind of
Matt.
as if that is some kind of so you're just attracted to minors. Now, as long as you don't commit any crime, if you are born with this problem and you go quickly to you find out about this and you don't want to hurt anybody, and you're like, and you go to therapy and you try to work this out, well, you're gonna try to. You don't want to hurt anybody. Okay, fine. No disrespect. You have a struggle. You have an issue. You have a mental a mental deficiency, but you don't want to hurt anybody. You know about it, and you try to embrace God. Okay, fine, fine. No disrespect to you. But then you have the people who they know they have this problem. They are not seeking help, and they are actively hurting children in ways of
Yes.
pride. And then that is one way where it's now socially acceptable through pride to hurt children. But then there is the more explicit one where you physically hurt the child, which I do not want to really talk about right now. But right now it is socially acceptable for some reason through pride to hurt children, and so the first thing they normalize is, well, you got to call them minor attracted persons, and you have to have respect to them.
Minor
Wait,
attracted person. I mean, what say does the if this is a person who's going to inflict sexual behavior on a 6-year-old, what say does the 6-year-old have in all of this? This is a person who is being overcome by somebody because they're larger. That's all that is, or they have authority over that child. That's a very horrible thing. That's a crime. That's a sin. That's not something that's good. But the thing is, within the communist movement that began way back then and made its way through the French Revolution and we got up to Soviet Russia and all the things that went on as a result. A man named Wilhelm Reich was part of this original group of Marx and Lenin, Marx and Engels, and all of these various people that came out of Germany and came out of that sort of that ilk of people. And Wilhelm Reich was the sort of sex person of that communist movement, and his whole thing was promiscuity. Promiscuity is healthy. It makes us strong. It makes us, everybody should be making love to everybody. You should be sleeping with your siblings.
I wouldn't call it making love.
Pansexuality.
Although I wouldn't call it making love. I would say it's making perversion. It's not making love. Love making
it's perversion,
is strictly
making perversion.
man to woman.
You're right.
So
you're right.
I'm sure they want you to use. You see, terminology is very important. So they want you to use. No, it's just making love. You have to understand, and they have a right to that. I'm like, no, they don't, and it's not making love. It is a perversion of love. And so again, this brings me back to the question: what is the obsession with? Why is the left so obsessed with sex?
And they make well, the thing is that because if you can break people down sexually, you will destroy society. That's what happens when a society goes into this sort of wantonness and they decide to adapt these ideas because they want to experiment or something, it's never a good thing. The family is the basis of health. And the family, the man and the woman come together and they create a family. This is the basic structure that God created, and that is the way we're supposed to live. And it doesn't change through time. We don't suddenly start eating through our nostrils. We don't suddenly, this is just nonsense. Yes, people have always eaten with their mouths and their teeth and their tongues, and they always will. And there's no idea of modernizing this, or as we grow and mature and get wiser, we will start to change how we do these things. There's something as simple as the sexual connection and the way that it produces a family is fundamental. And it's whenever there's an entity that's decided to get demonic and move into a society, they always move on the family. I mean, the family is the main thing to destroy. If you've destroyed the family, because the whole point of Marxism, they have two pillars, the destruction of the family and the destruction of religion. And if they can just destroy the family and religion, then they've got you.
This was literally part of the chant. This is the chant. By destroying the American family. How do we destroy the American family? By destroying the patriarchy. Which, by the way, for the record, I am pro patriarchy only because the feminists are.
So am I.
Because
up with the patriarchy.
Yes, I mean, look, this is basically how I compartmentalize this. It is that things were better in the 50s. Things were better with the sexual relations. Women were happier. Men were happier. Mental health everything was better. Now, of course, there was sexism, meaning, and when I say sexism, I don't mean the one where women weren't allowed to do all those certain things. I'm not talking about that kind of sexism. I'm talking about sexism as in a man, giving a woman a slap on the ass. I'm like, no, because that's not godly. I don't like that. That is bad sexism because it's not godly. So. No. So that is something. But first I say, let's go back to the patriarchy of the so-called patriarchy of the 50s. Now let's figure out how can we check the power of the unlimited power of the so-called patriarchy to make sure that they don't get to slap somebody, touch somebody who they don't want to. Let's make sure that men are kept in check and godly. So, objectively speaking, everything was better. All metrics were better, mentally, societally, everything was better in the 50s. That we have not made.
I can tell you.
You have not made progress.
I can tell you for
a fact.
I can tell you for a fact that is true because I was an adult in the 50s. I remember 1957 very, very, very well. That's the year I graduated from high school, and I graduated from high school in a very sane and very balanced world. It was very healthy. When you look back at my upbringing and the way I grew up and the schools I went to and the neighborhood I lived in and the people I was surrounded by, it was like a utopian dream now. If I sketch that out, if I were able to just throw my hand out and reproduce a day in my life in 1956, you would think that it was impossible. That it was a dream. But it wasn't. It was just regular everyday life. And the main way that you don't the people you keep people in check and from going wild with everything the way you described is because we learned manners. We had social objectives. There was a way in which you behaved in order to be thoughtful of other people. You tried to do what the liberty in America is about. You have liberty to do whatever you wish as long as you don't harm or cheat other people out of their liberty. That's all. It's a simple rule.
This is the main point that I'm trying to get at, and which I'm sure you are also trying to get at, is there was social cohesion. That was one thing, but social cohesion between the sexes. Now, of course, under the table, there were certain things which I reject because it is above all else not
there's
godly.
Always sin.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But right now the question is, okay, so you're not allowed to slap a woman on the ass. Okay, fine. Okay, I hear you. But what you are allowed to is objectify that woman in having casual or promiscuous sex. Oh yes, that's much better, right? Right? The feminist movement has made
fine.
that. Now you're not allowed to slap a woman on the ass, but you're allowed to have casual promiscuous sex. Sure, that's much more better. I'm like, wait, you've made no progress.
progress. You claim to make progress. There's no progress. Absolutely, you made everything much worse. You made it worse. So this is why I'm saying everything, even by your own metrics, women, or feminists,
Right.
even by your own metrics, you made it
Right.
worse. So what I'm saying is, first let's go back to there. Let's go back, meaning not in a literal sense, go back. But let's bring in more of the traditions that we had in the 50s. Let's figure and let's go from now. I hate this word progress because it's so perverse. But just in the literal word,
yeah.
the literal word
Well, it's
progress. Let's progress from there.
civilization.
But let's go back because we have made a huge bad turn. Let's go back to when
A really
when
bad
it was
turn.
social cohesion between the sexes. As a matter of fact, I saw a few videos from the 1950s of dating advice from the 1950s, and most of it is just like common sense. Some of it is pretty okay. That's smart. Not just common sense, but some of it is pretty smart, and others are a little weird. Different time period, I guess. But nowadays, you go and you hear the dating advice. I'm like, what the hell are you even talking about? What happened?
I know.
How did this happen?
I know. You have no idea. My husband and I were both raised in the very same way. I think that's why we had love at first sight, because I had been wandering around in the morass of New York, the new world here in New York City, and it's just a disaster. I mean, there's a civilization is sort of left. And I was in this world of artists because I was an actress, and I was surrounded by just heathens and insane people, basically. So when my husband and I spotted each other at this brunch in Philadelphia, we just, it was crazy. We looked at each other and we knew right away. I would never recommend this to anybody, and if a dear friend of mine did this, I'd lock her in a closet till she got over it. But the fact of the matter is that my husband and I had love at first sight. The minute we looked at each other, we locked in on each other. We've been together for 45 years now. We are so happy every minute that we're together. We have the most ecstatically wonderful marriage that I don't even want to talk about it because it sounds like I'm either making it up or bragging or something. But I only like to talk about it because I want people to have hope.
Well,
I want people to know that you really can find a person of that.
That you did, above
What?
of all people I can think of, reading your story, you definitely deserve it. Things that you went through. There's one Kate Millett's Demons. One small part here that literally it seems like she was possessed. When you read, this is why I'm asking my followers to look into this book because it gives you a whole new perspective on the people who are leading the feminist movement. She wrote a book called Sexual Politics, again going back to this obsession with sex, controlling the reproductive capabilities of people. Nowadays they're just cutting it off.
It's really about killing babies. I mean, you have to understand that really, really, really what's at the bottom of it all.
If it isn't killing babies, then
it
is just chopping up genitals. If it isn't killing babies, then it's chopping up genitals. The only reason I could think of, if I were a leftist, if I were in the mindset of the leftists, the only reason why I would feel bad about an abortion is because I didn't get to chop off the genitals of a live human being. This is how it seems nowadays.
Yeah.
This is what animates them. Now, we're not talking about liberals. We're talking about leftists.
Really?
Just for the record, I want to make sure that
they've managed to talk women. They've managed to talk women into the idea that it is one of their liberties, that it is their right and one of their duties, actually, to murder the children in their wombs. I mean, if you think about this for 10 seconds, this is so insane. And they've managed to make it like a sacrament. It's like a good thing. It's a noble and wonderful thing. You're not overpopulating the world. This is the population explosion, of course, was another big bunch of baloney that they heaped on women, and the women started thinking, oh, well, I don't want to add to the population. I should just kill my babies, and that way I won't increase the problem. I mean, the whole thing is it's insane, it's inane, it's irrational, it's against nature. It's nothing to do with what we're all doing here. We're not here to just... the thing is that in the 50s, what you and I were talking about, during that era, the one thing I want to get across to everybody is it was so much fun. We were having so bloody much fun. in the 40s and 50s, and it seeped over into the 60s, but then it all started going bad. But it was when you're in an organized, decent Western civilization based on Judeo-Christianity and the tenets and the manners and the social behavior of people who are living in that atmosphere, there's so much fun because you're free. There aren't all these awful side things going on all over the. These people have created so many problems with their so-called progress. I love the way they call it progress. It's just all you have to do is look at the Biden family. Look at these people. They're at the pinnacle of progress, and they're the leaders of our country now. I mean, they're drug addicts. They're having illegitimate children all over the place. I don't know what's going on with the sex lives of the Biden family, but
I'd
it's
rather not
really
know.
pretty
I'd
bizarre.
rather not know.
Yeah, really.
If you
really.
got
The
a
whole
good sense of
thing
humor,
is,
if you've got a good sense of humor, I've seen certain people refer to their bodies. Certain women say that, "Oh, my body's a temple." I'm like, yes, an Aztec temple where you murder children. So it's, I mean, and this is a very accurate. This is very accurate to say because they just they look at children as being a part. Oh, it's just a clump of human cells, and it gets even worse. Then there are people who call themselves Christians or Jews, and they pervert the teachings of their religions. With Christians, I'm sure you know about it, but with Judaism, as an ultra Orthodox Jew myself, I'm like, I've seen certain people, Jewish women who are feminists. They call themselves Jews. They have nothing in connection with the religion, only to use as a cover whenever you
no,
criticize them as being, oh, you're being anti-Semitic because you're criticizing me, and so they use it as a cover
yeah,
for their perverseness. So what they would say is, oh well, the Talmud allows, which is the Talmud basically describes the Jewish law,
yeah.
ritual law. So they say, well, the Talmud allows abortions, so I looked at one of these tweets, and they said, okay, this is what the Talmud claims. And they provided a link to show you where in the Talmud it says it. So I clicked on the link, and guess freaking what? Guess what it said there? It didn't say that you're allowed to kill your child. It said there that in the case of the life of the mother, the child is cut up, so to save the life of the mother. They said, it clearly stated, in case of the life of the mother. I was like, this is just a pro-life position. In case of the life of the mother, yes, the mother is put before the child because the mother is immediate priority and the child is a secondary priority. So since you can't save both, and especially 2,000 years ago, you definitely couldn't save both.
No, yeah.
So you would have to cut up the child while the child is in the womb, unfortunately. But in the Talmud, it clearly stated the case of the life of the mother. I was like, how can you not even see this? It's literally in there. This is the pro-life message, and you guys are saying, well, it's pro-abortion. I'm like, no, it's not saying that. And furthermore, a few sentences before that, it said that no, you can't kill the child. It clearly stated you can't kill the child. Then it says, in case of the life of the mother, this is how you kill the child. I'm like, oh my
But
goodness, it's so blatant, it's so open.
But the feminist argument is going to be, well, if I find out I'm pregnant, I have to go through a whole pregnancy and raise this other person until they're 21 years old. That's a threat to my life. I mean, that's going to destroy my life. So it is to protect the life of the mother. They stretch it as far as they can possibly rationalize it to themselves. It will ruin my life if I have this child, so therefore I have a right to kill the child. I mean, the whole point is that if you don't take part in promiscuous sex, you're not going to have unwanted pregnancies. That's getting back to cause and effect, Aaron. It's as if people never have figured out what causes babies. They think they can have promiscuous sex and just run around and do sexual behavior with everybody in the entire world, but they don't have to live with any kind. I mean, it's just, here we are back at, it's a circular discussion, but that's the crux of the whole thing. These people want to destroy the family, and they want to destroy Christianity and Judaism and every other religion, except maybe if you're Nepalese. These religions, of course, are sacred. Buddhism is a wonderful thing. It's like so weird.
I've noticed this, that they have an infatuation with Eastern religions, and that
Yeah.
includes for some reason Islam, which
Yeah. Yeah.
goes very much against their pride, although with pedophilia not that much in Islam. Apparently it is not that, unfortunately. For those who don't know,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
child
I
sex
lived in
brides.
Afghanistan.
There's
I lived in Afghanistan. Most of 1967, I lived in Afghanistan. And uh, the people in the Middle East, these grown men are walking around the streets with these little boys. They've got I've forgotten the word for it now. It's one of those words that I can never remember when I need to remember it. I've got about 6 words in the language that I have that with, and I just never can remember this. But when you're in Afghanistan and you're driving down the street or down the road, there are men walking with like little 7 and 8-year-old boys, and that's what's going on. That's de rigueur
to
in
use
the
them.
Middle East.
Wait, to use them?
Yeah, that's de
Wow,
rigueur.
that is
That's not considered in the least bit outrageous or to be frowned upon or anything.
wow. But furthermore, the sex the sex slave market in Iraq in itself is wild.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So what they do is, it's not that they're technically not sex slaves, because they're not having just sex out of the just having sex. Well, they're first married. You have to see. So now it's allowed because, well, now they do a temporary marriage. They have sex, then they discard the child. That's basically how it goes. For you guys, for anybody who's thinking I'm making this stuff up, you can look this up. The Iraqi sex slave market. It's alive and real, and it's still apparently it's booming. It's absolutely scary.
Oh,
So,
I'm sure.
so
I'm
this
sure.
is so this is
These people have
something-
no compunction.
Yes. So this is something I've noticed, that the even though the liberals they hate Christianity and Judaism. These are Western religions.
Yeah.
The Eastern religions, such as Islam and Buddhism and all the others,
Yeah.
they hate that. So that is something
Yeah.
very weird. So it seems like the paganism of these religions, and yes, I include Islam as being part of it. I know Islam likes to say that no, they worship Allah, which is God. No, God's name is very clear in the Bible. It's very clear what God's name is. It's not Allah. It is absolutely not Allah.
No.
Allah is a made up. It's a made up thing. It's made up completely. So
Oh, Muhammad just made up the whole thing. All he was ever trying to do was justify his own behavior.
Yeah.
You know.
it seems as though he made it up as he went. Anyway, but so for some reason they love those religions. Maybe because maybe the pedophilia, maybe all these things. Maybe they are infatuated with that. It seems as though because again these people are infatuated with sex. They write books about sex, and not good kinds of books about sex. They talk about perverse stuff. It's okay to write a book about it. It's okay to talk about the subject. I mean, I encourage to talk about the subject in a godly way. But now we have people who are perverting the entire thing, and so they are infatuated with this, with sex, pedophilia, bestiality, Satanism. It's
devil worship. I don't know what. I mean, these people. The thing of it is, Aaron, is that it's just the universal, classic situation or dilemma that we have of where evil takes good and twists it into evil. That's all. It's just the job of evil. It's the energy of evil that it must enter any situation that evil approaches. It will take what is good, twist it and pervert it and turn it into something very evil. But that's just something that we have to cope with from the moment we're conscious on this planet, is the whole point is how to go toward the good and avoid the evil with as much attention as you possibly can. And the whole point is the truth of the matter is, if you live a good life, you follow the 10 Commandments, you have a good relationship with God, and you try to do the right thing all the time, you have a healthy sex life and a healthy family, you're going to have great rewards from this. I mean, just untold. I mean, as it says in the Psalm, my cup runneth over. I mean, if you follow the Lord and you follow all the good paths that that Judeo-Christianity, the Western civilization lays out for you, you reap such rewards. It's embarrassing to talk about, even, of
Right.
health and wealth and well-being and friendship, and just having an active, good, productive life. These are things that you can have. It's not undoable, and it's not a pie in the sky. You can really have a great life if you just follow these suggestions for how to live a good, clean life. That's all. I mean, it's really very simple. Evil comes in and just works overtime to complicate everything, and mainly to get to people through their appetites. All this stuff about sex is just so, I don't know. It's just, my husband and I look out at the world, and we're just so glad that we found each other, and we've had these 45 years of really a rich, deep coming together of a man and a woman, and we are kind of wallowing in it. I mean, we are really, really happy with the way we've handled that whole part of our lives, and we try to spread it around. I mean, we try to, when the young kids that we meet, our friends, children and grandchildren, we try to be examples for them. That's our main energy, is just exemplify for them what happiness, what it takes to be happy, and that you really can be happy without any problem, just experiencing true happiness. And it doesn't take that much either. It's not such a big deal. It's a pretty simple thing.
Yeah, I would also like to ask about you're bringing up. I mean, with Kate, you both slept in the same bunk bed. I mean, you both as it
Wait a minute now.
says.
You're kind of going in. Wait a minute. I'm not hearing you very well right now. You're sort of going in and out. What were you just saying?
I would also like to touch on the about the personal capacity of how of what you would say about Kate. Now you both grew up together. You were in this.
Oh, what would
Apparently
I say about
you
Kate?
slept in the same room.
Well,
You both shared a bunk bed. So
yeah.
what would you and she?
Well, Kate was.
What was the life? What
Well,
was
what
life
I would
like with
say
her?
about Kate, what was life like with her? It
Yes.
was a nightmare. She was a nightmare of a human being. I mean, you couldn't have a day that there wasn't an incident. I mean, she was the basic truth about my sister and people who really knew her well, and her family and other friends of hers who really were worried about her a lot, was that she was mentally ill. And I would say that when I was born, she was 5. And I would guess that pretty much, I don't know, by the time she was 8 or 9 or 10, she was pretty nuts. She was a problem person. She was I had a friend. I'm a member of the Actors Studio here in New York, and I had a good friend who was a member of the studio, and she kind of got around, and she was, I think she was at a big party that Marlo Thomas, somebody kind of famous, gave this party, and apparently my sister was there, and this friend of mine came up to me and she said, you know, I was at a party with your sister the other night. And I said, oh, really? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, tell me about it. And she said, well, we were at one of those big round tables where there are 10 people at the table. It was one of these galas or something. And she said, and your sister was about 2 people away from me. And this person was an actress in the actor studio with me, and she was a great acting coach. She was a world famous acting coach, actually, and she created quite a few stars. And so she prided herself on all these things that they do, analyzing dreams and seeing auras and all of that stuff. So she turned to me and she said, I can see auras. And I said, yeah. And she said, your sister is the only person that I have ever witnessed who had an actually black aura. And I said, oh, yeah, that was Kate. That was Kate. You weren't mistaken. That was Kate. And that's what the thing you could say about Kate is she had a black aura. If everybody was in a room and they were having a wonderful time when I was growing up, and there were 12 family members in a room and everybody was laughing, and we had a very merry family, a wonderful family that really knew how to have fun and do great dinners with each other and stuff. But Kate would walk in the room, and the whole tenor of the room would change. The chemistry was just changed.
What you said
And
in the
it was
book,
from the
what you said in the book, she could tear through a room of people like a storm of flying razor blades. This is your words from the book. It's quite interesting that we're literally on the same page. As a matter of fact, here is your quote that you just mentioned: "The darkest person I've ever met, dot dot dot, as if she had a black aura."
yeah, it was. That's what she was like. And there are a few other people that are a lot like that. One of those people, what's her name? Her name is Rose something. She hates Donald Trump, and Donald Trump hates her. She's kind of this
Rosie
fat
O'Donnell.
woman. Rosie O'Donnell. She is the one person I've seen in this world who's more like Kate than anybody else I've ever seen. She's a lot like Kate, Rosie O'Donnell.
Wow.
She's
And
very similar. There's
you also
a
said
similar chemistry.
you also said this.
What?
You also said this about Kate's behavior. Even if this behavior, quote, was clinically diagnosed as insanity, unquote, said Mallory, quote, "For me, it was always evil itself," unquote. That is very harsh words. Why, why use this kind of language to describe your sister?
Well, you have to call a spade a spade. I mean, you couldn't trust anything else I ever said if if I didn't say that about Kate, because that was the reality. I mean, the reality was that she was a dark soul, and when she came into a room, she darkened the room, and everyone felt it. I mean, it was very sickening. It was nightmarish. To be around her was. My husband was once trapped in an apartment in St. Paul, Minnesota, with her for 3 weeks because we were all looking after my mother as she was dying, and we were doing rondelets of coming in and out of town to take care of mom. And Thomas and I had taken an apartment around the corner from mother so that people would have a place to stay when they came to town. And at one point, he was stuck alone in that apartment for 3 weeks with her. And he said, I just thanked God that for some reason or another, this was a rented apartment. We never had any idea why. Somebody had a lock on the interior door of the main main bedroom. The master bedroom of that apartment had a lock on the inside where you could lock people out of that master bedroom. And I never saw that before in my life. It was just a thing you turned like the inside of a bathroom door or something and could lock the door. And he said, I was so grateful for that lock because when I would go to bed at night, I locked the door because if I left it unlocked, I had no idea if Kate was going to come in the middle of the night and murder me or try to rape me. But I didn't want either things to happen. So I locked that door every night. That's my husband's take on having been with Kate. She was a mentally ill person. I don't know if you've ever been at close quarters or tried to live with somebody who has mental illness, but it's trying and it's nightmarish.
Did she ever express any love towards her sister, such as yourself? Did she ever, show any humanity
Love
whatsoever?
towards me?
Try anything? Did she
Oh,
show her humanity?
She feigned. She feigned all of these things very well. That's one of the ways that she got where she got. She had a way of telling you how much she loved you and courting you and trying to win you and seduce you. That was just, many people found it irresistible. I would just run into the next room. I mean, I would do. My therapist once said to me, I kept saying to her, I was crying on the sofa about my sister and what was I going to do, and my therapist said, "Well, you just leave." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Well, you just leave the room, leave the house, leave the apartment, go away." I said, "Well, I can't do that." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I can't just walk out on my sister." And she said, "Well, of course you can. You can say, I have to go to the bathroom. I just remembered a call I have to make. I forgot I had an appointment. There are a million ways you can just leave the room. But Mallory, you just have to learn to leave the room." And I said, "Oh my gosh." For some reason, that never occurred to me. And then finally, in 1993, when my mother died, I left the room. I never spoke to my sister again from the day we buried our mother. The day that we three daughters buried our mother, that was the last time I ever had any contact with Kate.
You say,
And I left the room, Aaron.
yeah.
Now this is what I have to say to all of you out there who are being tormented by family members, who are radicals, who are left-wing maniacs, who are communists, who are bringing all this stuff home from their college or their university. Just leave the room. Don't fight with them. Don't argue with them. You won't get anywhere. You won't get anywhere. Just leave the room.
Would you say that she used feel good words in order to get what she wants? Did
Oh,
any of it ever mean anything? Were there any at any point in time when you would speak to her that she would that she would be authentic at least once, try to relate to another human being, or was it all just manipulative? Say Satanism. What was it?
well, you
Was there
see,
any connection to humanity that she could exhibit?
the thing is that she was clever. She had a fairly high IQ, but she was so disturbed. You see, when a person down in their fundamental, the depth of their being is disturbed. In other words, she was profoundly insecure. She was always reaching out for love, and it was never enough for her. And she was always trying to pretend that she loved people, but she didn't really love anybody, because if you got involved in anything like that with her, where you believed that she loved you and you loved her, then things would descend into places that were just very unpleasant, where she would either be trying to seduce you sexually, or she was trying to turn you into her errand boy. She would, one of her first impulses when she would get close to a person was to turn them into her servant. And I found that's true of most people who have this sort of mental disorder, this thing where they're just not really sane. They're living out some fantasy in their own minds or something, and they love to make everybody around them their servant. It's a disturbed ego. I don't know what it is. I really never understood any way to get through to Kate. I mean, you could have the deepest understanding in the world with her 1 minute, and an hour later she could be out in the backyard screaming and yelling and hollering, with waving her arms and legs in the air like a 4-year-old having a tantrum. I mean, she just was very, very disturbed. She was very unhappy. No amount of love was ever enough for her. And
No.
she was just a person who felt lonesome. She was very lonely all the time. She was very desperate. She was a desperate person, and I don't know what another person can do about that. There's really nothing you can do for someone who is in that state.
You also talked about here, Kate had, as a matter of fact, this also, you said this in the book, Kate had many handmaidens. Mallory notes that her radical sister had enablers everywhere, on all 7 continents. More groupies,
Yeah.
acolytes, minions who worshipped her. Now, of course, now this kind of makes sense. I mean, the high priestess of feminism makes sense that that it's not enough that she is the high priestess who worships at the altar of feminism and at Satanism and all the other isms, but also that people worship her, because, as we know, communism is basically what it stems from Satanism. And what is Satanism? It is that man would not only be made in the image of God, which is the Judaism and Christianity. It is that man would become God, as the snake or Satan whispered in the ear of Eve in the Garden of Eden, "Ye shall be as gods." You just need to you will acquire the knowledge. You will be as God. So this is where this stems from. So of course it makes sense. Furthermore, here's something else. I on the same page it says this. This is what you say. This was especially true after an incident when I was trapped alone with Kate in an apartment in Sacramento for a week, and she did not allow me to sleep for 5 days as she raged and ranted, eyes rolling in her head, frothing at the mouth, and holding chats with little green men. Wow.
Yeah.
And that is who is seeing the little green men? She is seeing little green men.
It's like a joke, I mean, when I arrived in California that time, and she met me at the airport, I got off the plane, and I was walking through the airport looking for her, and then I saw her way across the airport, way across. There were hundreds of people between her and me, and I could see her coming through the front door of the airport as I was walking into that area, and I could see that she was on a tear. And I turned to the person I was with and I said, "Oh my God, I'm in for it." And they said, "What?" And I said, "Look, see way across the floor there. There's Kate there. You can see the black storm that's coming toward us, can't you?" And the person said, "Oh my God." It was just, it was like looking at tumbleweed blowing across a desert or something, where, I mean, there she was and I thought, "Oh my God, I'm in for it." She's in one of her blackest moods. She's crazier than ever, and I'm going to have to live with this. And then I proceeded to have that time there in Sacramento, in Berkeley with her. It was just so traumatic. I mean, I was never alone with her again after that. I just,
Wow.
I couldn't deal with it.
It strikes me quite the fact that she wouldn't allow you to sleep for 5 days, and
Well, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't that she didn't allow me to, but that I was so afraid to go to sleep because I didn't know if I'd wake up with a knife in my back. I mean, she was
was
so erratic and strange and crazy that one minute she adored the ground you walked on, and the next minute she wanted to murder you. And she tried to murder me a lot of times. I mean, I've been chased around with Kate with a butcher knife a
wow.
couple of times in my life. I mean, she's really, and you never know when she's going to turn on you and go into one of these things. I mean, people need to get their family members serious help when this is going on. You can't have this running through a family for years like this. It was such a trauma for me. I mean, I
It's
barely over it at this point, and I'm 85. I mean, I've been away from her for years and years and years, but she instilled such nightmarish stuff in me that I have to deal with that. I have to you know work on depression. I have to work on um, fear of other people. Just when I just sense that somebody is even remotely nuts or really off the beam, I just have to get away. I cannot. I have to be around sublimely sane people. I really
yeah.
do. It's very important to insist that the people around you are sane.
Yes.
It's very important.
We're coming up to the end here, but before we do, I'd also like to read some more here. That one of the rituals, I guess this is describing. Oh, before I do read that, I just want to also say that I correct me if I'm wrong. I remember reading in the book that I can't find it right now that she tried to suffocate you. Is that, or am I misremembering, or is that just a phantom memory?
No, not suffocate. She tried to push my head through a window once. Uh, she mainly she would would attack you physically with her fists or her hands, or a couple of times she's threatened me with knives. But it's just a very unpleasant experience to be in the same room with a person who is unhinged on this level, who is just not in reality. You can't just sit down and consent to agree on what is reality at this moment, because she would concoct so many paranoid, crazy things in her own mind that were real. She thought were real. That's why this whole feminist movement. It's so much about lesbianism. I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, it's just so much about this.
I can't remember. I
It's
can't
so much.
remember who said this. That feminism is basically wants to turn women into lesbian witches. I don't remember who said that, but I'm like, well, it
Yeah,
kind of does. I mean, it's not that. I mean, it's pretty darn
it's
accurate.
a group of women. It's a group of women who think they've suffered at the hands of men because some Johnny or Jason or Jimmy upset them when they were 16. He didn't ask them to the dance. I don't know what. But they developed this hatred for men.
It's not
And
seeking for
once you
justice.
get into
It's
this
seeking
thing,
for revenge. As it seeks for
yeah,
revenge for where no injury was incurred. I would also
exactly.
let me just read this. The this is one of the it seems that this is one of the rituals that she would perform upon entering Kate's apartment. There was a long low table with 12 placements topped by a plate, a bowl of water, and sharp knife resting on it. In front of each place setting were 12 completely naked women sitting cross-legged on cushions. The naked woman at the head of the table was wrapped by a 10-foot boa
Boa constrictor.
constrictor. Dumbstruck and
Yeah.
appalled, Mallory and her friend watched in horror. They were invited to join in the ritual, but they told Kate that they were just there to observe, which seemed to suit Kate since they were only willing to take off their shoes. As they took their eyes off to resume the ritual, Mallory explains, "We tiptoed to our shoes and crept out, running down the flights like bats out of hell. My feet barely touched the
Absolutely.
steps until we burst out into the Bowery, shaking and huffing in shock and terror." Unquote. Now the question
Yes.
is, what do you think you saw there? What was about to occur? Because the book doesn't tell you what was about to occur. What do you
Oh,
think was about to happen?
oh, don't I say that she invited us to her Halloween party? First of all, I hate Halloween. I never have anything to do with Halloween. I really despise it. But of course, she was the typical hippie, alter, I don't know what person,
She doesn't strike me as the typical
or revolutionary person. They always like Halloween. I don't know. They always have a big thing about Halloween, and I hate it. But she
Well,
said,
you know
"Oh,
what they say.
you and
You
Lisa
know what
should-"
what they say. They say that Halloween is when, I mean, at least in paganism, Halloween is the closest when the spiritual and physical realms are closest to each other. So spirits from the other world could seep into this world. At least that's what they love to say. I mean, so
Oh, it's
I'm like,
evil.
I
I
mean,
mean, Halloween
you
is,
know,
I don't know what it is. It's a way of trapping children into thinking that it's fun to dress as witches and ghosts and things. I don't know. I just think the whole thing is evil. It's the evil trying to break through the way it has all these other ways of breaking through. But anyway, she said, you and Lisa, come to my Halloween party. And, we lived around the corner at that point. And I said, well, yeah, we'll stop by. Because I was always trying to make Kate happy. Kate was such just a basically unhappy human being that always made you feel that you could make her happy, that somehow there was some way that you could make her happy. So I spent many years of my life trying to make Kate happy, which was simply impossible. But anyway, we said, sure, we'll stop in. We'll come by. So we walked up the five flights of stairs into her loft, and that's what we walked into. It wasn't a Halloween party. It was a witch's coven with 12 women naked sitting around it was a very low table, like a Japanese table in a Japanese restaurant, with these huge cushions. The women were all sitting cross-legged on the cushions, and this huge, very fat woman, she must have weighed 250 pounds, stark naked, with a boa constrictor wrapped around her body. Well, I mean, you walk into a room and find that someday and tell me what happens to you. I mean, Lisa and our minds were blown. I mean, we were just, the minute we walked in, it was, oh my God, get me out of here. What on the hell are they up to now? Now what are they up to? And it was just enough. I mean, I had to put up with so much nonsense from this sister. So at our first opportunity, we got out of there and ran like hell. I mean,
what?
it's just,
So,
it was a surprise a day with Kate. Believe me, life was never dull.
But the question, but again, I mean, if it were only just naked women, I know I would understand, lesbianism. Okay, I get it. I understand what is about to occur.
No, you couldn't.
But also,
it was crazy.
But it says here, a bowl of water and a sharp knife.
Oh yeah.
Why? What is that
We always
about?
wondered what. Yeah, what that. After we left, for years we've looked at each other and said, "What in the heck were the plate with the bowl of water with the sharp knife across the plate, across the bowl? The bowl was sitting on the plate, and then there was a sharp knife, and you could hear somebody sharpening knives back by the kitchen. I could hear this knife sharpener going, and these very sharp, newly sharpened knives were placed across the bowl. Now I don't know what was about to occur there. What did they kill the snake? No, I didn't think that would be it. Then they said, well, were they cutting themselves and exchanging blood as doing blood sisterhood? Or, I mean, we've never known what that little setup was about. I have no idea. All I can do is conjecture.
It
You
sounds.
know,
I think
I've never been.
it sounds
I've
like
never been to a witch's coven, so I don't know what they do in witches' covens.
if so. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I even have to bring this up, but this is what I would have thought if they were clothed or mild or not completely clothed, but we all know what was about to occur. And the knife, I would consider, okay, the knife is about, they're about to get very freaky with a knife to to make it more erotic, I guess. But if they're already naked, I'm like, okay, so what is a knife? So it sounds like what a knife was for, as you just stated, that they were maybe they were about to cut their hand open, so, and exchange blood, so to create some kind of
Yeah,
system,
yeah.
or maybe a blood sacrifice for, I don't know. This
Oh,
is
I
what it
don't know.
sounds
I
like.
didn't. I don't think there was. I don't think there was anything in the loft there that they would have sacrificed. I don't think that was that. I
No,
have
when
a
I say blood
feeling it was
sacrifice,
about.
when I say blood sacrifice, I don't mean that they were about to literally kill somebody. Although that is possible. I'm not gonna speculate too much on that. When I say blood sacrifice, I just mean they're gonna cut a wound and then use and then
Yeah,
then release some
exchange
blood
blood or
and
something.
use that as a
Yeah,
sacrifice to say, we're not killing anybody, but we're offering blood. I guess that this is
yeah.
what it's this is what
That's my
this is all
guess.
I can guess. This is all I can guess. I don't want, and if I were to guess even further, I don't want to. I really don't want to guess any further because this sounds freaky, scary, and
Because we don't really want to know, do we? I mean, it's just. I mean, I think it was mixing their blood, something like that. Blood sisters, some goofy adolescent. I mean, these people are all just overgrown 14-year-olds. It's this people who are running from maturity. They're afraid of being married. They're afraid of being wives. They're afraid of being mothers. They're afraid of going into the adult world, and they do all these childish things. It's all
if I
very.
may make some comedy on the situation, I'm just glad that they didn't have any hangers. If you get my drift. If you, yeah. So let's not talk too much about that one. Anyway, so we're coming up to the end of the year, and with all this, we have discussed so much here. With all this,
Yeah, we ended up
she died
hitting
in
a lot of.
26 she died in 2017, a week shy of her 83rd birthday. She collapsed
Yeah,
from a massive heart attack. This is what it says here.
yeah. She
It,
simply dropped dead. She was laughing. She and her quote wife unquote. She and her wife had just
sex
landed in
partner, I guess you
Paris,
can say. I just
and
don't use
they
that. I don't use that language only because wife is specifically a woman married to a man, and the husband is a
of
man
course
or married.
it's absurd.
So
It's just
I don't respect them saying that. Oh no, we're gonna take this title. No, you're not gonna take this title. A king is somebody who rules over a country. A chauffeur is somebody who drives you, and a man and a husband and a wife is specific also to those roles, not somebody a man and a man
right.
and a woman. You want to you could call it.
Well, that's why I say quote wife unquote.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
that's it's absurd.
right.
But this person that she was with, and they landed in Paris, and they had just arrived at their hotel room, and Kate had gone into the bathroom, and she came out, and she was complaining about the French toilet paper. How, good heavens, in all these years they've never produced better toilet paper than 30 years ago or something. Or they were laughing about what I find really strange. They were laughing about toilet paper, and they were in the throes of a big laugh, and she just dropped dead. And the doctor said that she was dead when she hit the floor.
Wow.
So that was the end of Kate, and that was one thing that it's always mystified me is that she was given such an easy death.
Wow.
She was happy, she was having fun, she was in Paris where she wanted to be, and then she just dropped dead. When I think of all the wonderful people I know who've gone through so much agony to get from life to death, and all of their horrors in hospitals and operating rooms and things, and
If I may,
taking months and
if
years
I
to
may,
die, and she
I
got to just drop dead.
if I may, let me give you something that may help you understand, or at least can give you some clarity on why she may have not even suffered, died in such a way, such an easy death. In Judaism, it is accepted that the people on Earth, the evil people will live. A lot of evil people will live a better life, an easier life, and a richer life than good virtuous people, because God wants to give them a full punishment in the world to come, that you can live, you have all the good deeds, you get rewarded on this world, and in the next world you get full hell, and for good people who suffer a lot in this world, they suffer here to punish them for their bad deeds on this world, but when they get
Yes,
to the next world, they have a they get a much
they're
better
spared.
heaven, because they
Yeah.
already suffered. So this might
Yes.
give you some more
Yes.
clarity to why it seems that she would not suffer that much, have not that bad of a death. So to punish her fully in the next world, and the only reason why I'm talking to your sister like that, because it seems that you had no deep connection to her. If there were to be a more, you know, more feelings there, I wouldn't be talking in such harsh words, because it is a tragedy, and it is very, very sad to see a person fall so deeply into the depths of Satanism. And
It was very, very hard to watch because, I have to say, I loved my sister. I really did love her. It's just that there was so much darkness that she put out that came between you and her that made it, you couldn't, reach her with your love. But I had great love for her. I saw her loneliness. I saw her sorrow and her pain. And it was a hard thing to endure because it was so deep. But yeah, I've thought of that. That she. I think sometimes if you sell your soul to the devil, he takes you. Maybe you do get this kind of sudden, instant, painless death because there are all kinds of so-called advantages to selling your soul to the devil. I don't think there really are, but people seem to be very attracted to the whole thing. I had a very famous friend who was a big star, and one day she turned to me and she said, "Do you think I sold my soul to the devil?" Because she was such a big star and she had so much, uh, so many earthly rewards. It was just staggering. And I looked at her for a long time and I said, "I don't know. Did you?" Because that's all I could think of to do to respond. Is it looked pretty much to me as if she did, you know. I thought to myself, "Wow, you sold your soul to the devil? That's strange." You know, It's all a very mysterious thing. This. I
yeah,
think that people do sort of do a deal, and then they get everything they want on this plane, but you don't want to follow them into the next one.
yes, and it does. I mean, it does seem that she kind of did sell her soul, having lived, with all the so-called sufferings, with mentally speaking, that she incurred. Seems as though she had a pretty good life, especially since they loved her on the left. They created a god out, or
Oh
I'm not
yeah,
even gonna
she
say
was
it.
worshipped.
Yeah,
Yeah, she was
so
worshipped,
by the
worshipped. I
left,
mean, people adored her.
she was one
Yeah,
of the highest people in the feminist movement. She was one of the leaders,
yeah.
thought leaders, created books, and so therefore, I guess, what would it be? I mean, we're now finally at the end. So, what would be your message to those who, for young women, they feel that, and we're not talking about conservative women who know the scam of feminism. We're talking about women who may be listening right now and they're like, yes, but patriarchy, but the patriarchy is this or that, or this or that or the other thing, that they feel that it's unfair from the patriarchy. What would you say to them, that they should not become feminists, or they should not fall into this trap? What would be your message?
Well, I always tell young girls to run from feminism as fast and as hard as they can, and I tell young men, just the first question to ask a girl is, "Are you a feminist?" If she says yes, get out of the room as fast as you can. There's nothing you can do about it. Go away. Find a girl who isn't a feminist. Because, there's a basic design. It's men and women. I have no quarrel with that. It's just fine with me. There's a basic design where you have to have rain to grow the flowers. You have to have, you know, sun to grow the wheat. You can't mess around with these things. You can't decide that you're going to make it so that you don't need water to grow flowers anymore. There's no point in doing that. The great joy in life is going along with the design. Look at this design. It's beautiful. I mean, boys are wonderful people. Girls are lovely people. There's nothing wrong with being a full-out girl, and nothing wrong with being a full-out guy. And it's lots of fun to play these wonderful roles that God has created for us. When my husband and I love being the woman, and he loves being the man, and we serve each other with joy. I love serving him. He is my husband. I love him with all my heart, and he worships me. I mean, he just I don't deserve at all remotely the kind of love and respect and joy that he gives to me. We get a lot of joy out of our marriage, and I would just encourage everybody. If you're really young, you're 14 or 15 or 20 or in these ages, and you're hearing all these ideas about the revolution and the feminism and men are bad and men are trying to dominate women and women are just letting themselves be used. Just get away from all of that. Just try to be a natural, happy, loving, wholesome person. Eat properly, sleep properly, take good care of your body, make it the best you can possibly make with what God, the particular persona God has given you to be, and develop that into the best model of that person that God asked you to be, and just try to enjoy life. Have a good time here. Have a lot of fun. This is not a thing to be wandering around feeling sullen and deploring everything and hating men and being upset because you're a woman, and it's just such a waste of time. It's such a waste of time. You should just glory in the reality of the way we're made and what God has given us as our basic gifts. That's
Yes.
all I can say.
I would like to add.
At the age,
I would like to
the
add
advanced
something.
age of 85, what?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Just finish. Go ahead.
What did you say? You
Yeah, I
said
was
you'd
about to
like
add,
to
but I
add
want
something?
Yes, but first I want you to say finish your sentence.
No, I was done. I was
Okay.
finished.
All right. So I would like to add that for those who are trying to find out, they're trying to figure out their place in the world, and they might think that feminism may be the way to go, either man or woman. I would like to say that men need women, women need men. God created man in His image, and He created every man and every woman, or just mankind, every person, as being only half of something, and
Yes,
everybody needs the other person. Every man needs a woman. Every woman needs a man in order to create one. In order
we do.
to create one flesh, as the Bible says, as it is taught.
Absolutely.
So it is very important.
That's this plain and simple truth. Yeah.
So if you're wondering what is missing, why do I feel incomplete? This might be a good place to start. looking at looking at where do you want to go in life? Do you want to become? Do you want to become a wife and a husband, or a husband? Do you want to become a mother or a father? I think this would give you, it'll give you purpose, and people are lacking in purpose. That is a good place to start looking. That's
Yeah.
something that I would like to add on. If you feel incomplete, just remember you're only half of something, and you have to find your
Absolutely.
other half. So this has been wonderful. This
I
discussion
couldn't say it better.
This discussion has been wonderful. This has been highly illuminating, and you've given the audience a good reason why to buy this book, because it's not only this book isn't only about your sister. This book has a whole bunch of interesting subjects, talks about communism, but this part of the book is good enough reason to buy the book. Period. And the reason why I'm talking, nobody's paying me to say this. I read the book. I love the book, so therefore I'm saying this is a good book. Go ahead and read it. So this has been wonderful. Now that we're at the end,
Thank you so much.
I would like for you to say, where can people find you? Where can they look up your work?
I have a website. It's MalloryMillett.com. MALLORY MILLETT.com. MalloryMillett.com. And I've got a lot of interviews and essays and things on there they might enjoy.
And what is your social media? Where can they find you on social media?
What?
Where can they find you on social media? On Twitter, on Facebook?
I'm on Twitter. Yeah, I'm on Twitter.
What is your at?
It's Mallory Millett 1. The figure 1, not the word. Mallory Millett 1.
All right. So before I let you go, I'm gonna first I'll let people know where they can find me, and after the interview, I'd just like to have you on just for a few minutes. All right. So for all of those who want to look up my work, find me, and you want to leave a comment about this episode, you want me to do episode with other people, you could go ahead and you can email me at politidoxy@gmail.com, or on Instagram at Aaron Friedman, or on Twitter at Aaron Politidoxy. I thank you everyone for listening to this episode. The most important thing you can do is share this episode. You can listen to it on Spotify, YouTube, and it'll probably be on Twitter. We'll see. So the most important thing you can do, share this episode with anyone and everyone you can, because this is a very important episode. It's very good. This is very interesting. Like, subscribe, comment. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, my fellow radicals, stay political.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aaron. I really enjoyed it.